then did the non-stress testing where they put the things on
The
your belly.
monitor on your belly, and they give you a button
Mhm.
to press every time you feel him move.
Yes. So I laid down, they put the monitors on me, and they left.
They didn't tell you press the button every time you feel
No,
him move?
they didn't give me a button.
Oh.
They came in and they looked around and they said, "Oh, you don't have a button?" So she hands me the button and then leaves. And I don't know what I'm doing with this button. She
You're
didn't
like,
tell me what
"What's
to do with
this
the
for?"
button.
Oh, man.
So then we have another person come in around 10 minutes and they're like, "So baby's not moving?" And I said, "Yeah, baby's moving fine." And they're like, "Why aren't you pushing the button?" I said, "You didn't tell me to push the button."
I'm Kayla Heater, follower of Jesus, wife and mother of 6 children, Christian childbirth educator and doula, and your host of the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, where we share God-centered birth stories, evidence-based birth education, and our pursuit of surrendering our birth plans to God. Let's get started. Well, hi, everybody. I am tempted to say Happy Easter again because our family ended up celebrating Easter a week later because we all got sick. My husband actually was the first to drop, which is weird because usually he's the last to get anything. Usually doesn't get whatever we get, but he was the first to get it, and then it cycled through our family pretty quickly. And we all had colds, coughs, mainly just like a couple days of feeling really yucky. And some of us had fever, some of us didn't, but thankfully we are all on the up and up. And so we celebrated Easter this past weekend, and did the Easter egg hunts and all that fun stuff with the kids. So got to go to church and everything. So happy Easter again. But you know what? He is risen all the time. So we can celebrate Jesus every single day. We don't have to celebrate it just on Easter. But it was special. My kids were excited to finally get to do their egg hunts that they look forward to at their grandmother's house every year. I wanted to just be very authentic for a minute. Not that I'm never authentic. I think maybe you've realized that by now, but I constantly struggle with the tension between like wanting to work on this podcast more and my website more and social media more. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm pretty terrible about posting regularly. I do my best to post at least once a week, but sometimes that doesn't even happen. So I'm constantly in this trap of I get super passionate and excited and I want to like work on things for the business and work on more freebies and content and all this fun stuff for you guys. And then reality of motherhood comes in, and just the fact that I do have 6 children and I do homeschool them, and we do live in a home that we need to take care of, and we do have lives, outside of this business. So I don't have anyone who works for me. I don't have a social media manager. You've probably caught on to that by now. I don't have a content creator. I don't have any of those things. And I appreciate you continuing to listen and continuing to stick with me, even though I am not the world's best content creator, which, that wasn't a thing, right? Like, gosh, probably 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, your business wasn't on social media. Like, that wasn't the place to market or advertise or let people like know about the fact that you exist. But now it's like, if you don't have social media, then people don't think you exist. And it's like every business owner had to become a content creator, which is a lot of pressure because spending time teaching my kids how to read and pushing them on the swings and baking cookies with them and, all that kind of stuff. So anywho, just thank you for your grace. And I wanted to just let you know, I do feel that tension, and I probably would work on the business stuff a lot more, but I am prioritizing my family because that's what's most important. But we do still love getting this out to you every week. And my husband and I do work consistently each week to make sure you at least get a new episode every week. So that we can promise you. And I wanted to say this exciting thing of this week's episode is actually the very last episode I recorded before I had Bowie, before I had baby number 6. So this is our last pre-6th baby episode. All the other episodes starting next week will be quote unquote new episodes, just meaning I recorded them after my maternity leave was over. And after he was born and after he was a couple months old. So just thought you would find that interesting if you're a loyal listener. And if we have any new listeners, welcome. Welcome to any new listeners. I know new people find this podcast all the time, and hopefully you'll get to know me a little bit more each week as you listen in and maybe as you go back and listen to old episodes. But we are glad you are here. Okay, enough about me and my life. Let's jump in to this week's episode. Sometimes all it takes is one person's recommendation and you taking it to change your perspective on everything. That's what happened to Amelia when she read Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. So she went on to hire a doula and plan a natural childbirth. But unfortunately, her care providers would bully her into an induction, and one that lasted for 3 days. Between a nasty tooth abscess and a root canal a mere few days before she would be induced, to a long induction process, Amelia was exhausted. But when her baby finally came, she would be overjoyed and also happy to know that he was, in fact, totally fine. Advocacy is important. Whether you're advocating for yourself or having someone advocate for you, somebody on your birth team needs to have your best interest at heart and not the hospital's. Well, welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. I am your host, Kayla Heater, and I have Amelia with me today. Amelia, why don't you take just a minute, introduce yourself, your family, tell us about your day-to-day life, and help us get to know you a little bit.
Sure. My name is Amelia. I'm 27 years old. I'm a speech language pathologist most of the time, except right now I'm a stay-at-home mom. I stopped working at 30 weeks pregnant because it was just a little too hard getting on and off the floors of daycares with kids. It just it's a little much.
Oh, yeah.
I live with my husband and my baby and my cat near the beach. And I like knitting and making sourdough.
Lovely. My daughter is learning how to knit right now. She's in a
Oh,
homeschool co-op class, and there was a knitting class, and she's picked up on it really well, and she's making her first scarf and is very
wow.
excited. Yes. She knows more than I do. I don't know how to knit or crochet, but it's on my list.
Oh yeah. I have a wall of yarn. It's it's an addiction.
I hear that. I have some friends who crochet a lot, and that, yeah, they're like, yeah, I need to get rid of some of this because it's so much. But I can understand if you know how to do it, that would be very tempting.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, let's dive in to your baby's story. Take us back. Tell us the journey, the story of what it was like to get pregnant.
Sure. So my husband and I moved up to the Wilmington, North Carolina area after getting married and then moving to Charleston and realizing it was way too expensive there to even raise a family. So, by the grace of God, he got this amazing job up here that allowed me to be stay at home with him.
And where is up here again?
Wilmington.
Oh, you're in Wilmington. Okay.
Mhm. From Charleston to Wilmington. He got a really nice job that afforded us the ability to buy a house and have a baby. So we weren't trying, but we weren't not trying. Um,
Right.
we
You
just
weren't
kind
like
of,
taking ovulation tests and like tracking everything to the minute, but you also were not preventing anything from happening.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
And we moved up here in September, and I was pregnant by December. I remember taking the test on Christmas Eve, and there was the little lines, and I was so excited. It was right
Oh,
before we drove to see our family, so My family is near the mountains of North Carolina, so we drove the 4 hours there, and I told everybody I could that I was pregnant. I was so excited.
Well, and that's such a fun Christmas memory too. Like Christmas is already so special, and then getting to find out you're pregnant and tell everyone you're pregnant. I always wanted to be able to do that, like
Mhm.
with some of our pregnancies, but it never worked out that way. But I always wanted to do that. Look, a Christmas pregnancy announcement. Okay, so you got pregnant pretty easily. What a blessing that is. So, what did you do next? Did you find a care provider, start seeing somebody for your pregnancy?
Yeah, so January rolled around and like, the Christmas kind of stuff wore off and I thought, wow, I probably need to find somebody. I wasn't trying to get someone specific, just because I didn't know the area very well.
Yeah.
But I found some good reviews on Google about the midwives in the hospital system here. So I called them up and thought this should work out. And it did. They have like a rotating couple of different midwives,
Yeah.
and I went in January and got everything confirmed. I didn't seriously start thinking about how I wanted to have him until I read Ina May's childbirth guide, and then I started
Uh,
going, "Oh, I should really do a lot more." What?
what a great book. What led you to that book? Because that's like my number one recommendation for pregnant women to read to prep for childbirth is Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. So how
Yeah.
did you come about picking up that book?
So one of the parents of the kids that I saw for speech therapy recommended it to me 'cause she was like, "Oh, do you know how you are, going to give birth?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. I'm going to go to the hospital and have a baby." And she was like, "I
I
recommend
recommend
this
you read
book."
this. Good for
Mm.
her. Way to go, mom of speech therapist child. That's great.
Oh yeah, it changed my entire perspective on how this was going to go.
Mhm. Isn't it amazing how just a little bit of information like that like can open you up to a whole new world that you didn't even know existed?
For sure. I was blown away, and I then became obsessed with reading about birth stories, listening to birth stories, and that led me to your podcast, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So you start reading, you start researching, you start realizing there's a different way to give birth. So then, with all that information, what was your vision for birth? What were you planning? What were you desiring?
So, I feel like with the people that were around me telling me, just my coworkers, just I mean, everybody has once you're pregnant, I feel like everybody has an opinion about how you should give birth.
They sure do.
So I was getting a lot of opinions, advice, and I don't it's not like I didn't appreciate it, but I would tell people that I wanted the most positive birthing experience that I could have, and secretly hoping that maybe I could have a natural birth, especially after, reading Ina May and just seeing more benefits to that.
Yeah.
But I stuck with the midwives and decided to get a doula. One of my husband's cousins just had a baby too, and she said that the biggest regret that she had was that she didn't have a doula. I thought, okay, I'll get a doula. That'll help me. And I don't know how I would have given birth without her.
Yeah.
That was something that was so helpful. My husband was like, I was very on the fence about the doula, but at the end, he was like, "I don't think we paid her enough." That
That's
was
so funny.
so helpful.
I've heard that from multiple husbands before. They're like, "So we owe you more, right?" And I was like, "Nope." Mm-mm.
That was crazy. We started singing the praises of the doula, uh, by the time we were finished. And also, I'm a speech therapist. I love therapy. I started pelvic floor therapy just to help me learn how to push. I was basically doing everything that I thought I could possibly do to take this birth and run with it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Just try to control it as much as I could.
Ah,
As
I'm like,
that
"How did that work out for you?"
that did not work out very well. Um, throughout especially the 3rd trimester, was when I really tried to control everything, and it just felt like the more that I tried to control stuff was the more God showed me that I could not do any of this without him. Around March, I had to go to the dentist for, I think it was like a routine clean and then to look at everything. So they did an x-ray and they figured out that one of my cavities that I got filled like a year ago, they did not fill well. So they had to redo it. I thought, okay. And then a month later, I was in extreme pain. So I had to go back to the dentist. So that was in March. And they were like, well, we could either retry to do the cavity or you need a root canal. I was like, oh my gosh. So they looked at it and the dentist decided to try to refill the cavity. However, it was so inflamed that it took about 7 shots of lidocaine before they got it numb.
Oof.
I was not happy. It was very stressful and
Yeah.
so painful. The dentist kept apologizing as he gave me more and more shots, but we finally got it done. And I thought that was the end of everything. But it came back 39 weeks pregnant.
Oof.
And I ended up having to get a root canal at 39 weeks pregnant.
Ugh. I hope you were numbed up very well for that.
Oh, yeah. Thank the Lord. It was way less painful. I was so scared. So the Saturday before, because every Monday was like my 38 to 39 weeks kind of deal.
Yeah.
So that Saturday, I started not feeling very well. And by Saturday night, I was in so much pain that I didn't sleep. So I did hot compresses, cold compresses. I did everything that I could possibly think of. I come from a family where, oh, you're hurt, go drink some water.
Right.
Um,
Tough up.
you don't feel well, you should probably go drink some water. So I'm chugging water. I'm doing all the compresses that I possibly can, and nothing is getting better. At 6 in the morning, I go and wake up my husband on Sunday and say, you have to drive me to the emergency dentist. I found one at 4 in the morning while I was in so much pain. And they open in, I think an hour. So we went to the emergency dentist and they took an x-ray and the guy goes, yeah, that's a big tooth abscess. You need a root canal. And I just burst into tears. It's like, no way. And the guy said, yes way.
So
And he
did they
gave
have
me,
to drain the abscess?
they gave me some numbing and some antibiotics. And they told me that the people that they're going to recommend to do the root canal would do the rest,
Okay.
is what they told me. So I had to wait until Monday to call the people that they referred me to. And then I called them and they said, the only thing that we have available is on Thursday. And I said, please, I'm 39 weeks pregnant. Is there anything you can do for me? And they said, no, I'll see you Thursday.
Oh, man. Did the antibiotics help with the pain?
I never feel like antibiotics help me that
Yeah.
much. But at that point, I had a fever and I'm not a big pain medication person, but I was taking Tylenol. I felt so awful and I was trying to keep my fever down.
Yeah.
But I ended up getting an appointment for that Wednesday instead. So I was able to at least get
One day sooner.
1 day sooner.
So once they did the root canal and everything, did you feel like so much better after that?
Insanely better. I felt loads better. I slept all of Thursday, which was so nice that God was able to give me that rest for that entire day because the next day was when I had to go get induced.
Wait,
Um,
what? Why did you have to go get induced? Were you still 39 weeks at that point?
I was 39. His due date was the 1st of September, or yeah, 1st of September. It was the end of July. I think it was July 30th was when I started getting midwives. When they would come and measure me, they said that I was measuring behind. That was the first, I think that was the first appointment that I started getting, you're smaller for what we'd like you to be.
Like your fundal height, you mean?
hmm
Okay.
And I always just kind of brushed it off. I had morning appointments. I wasn't drinking probably a lot of water at that point, so I thought maybe
Fluids low.
that's
Yeah.
why. My husband was a small baby. Maybe you just took after him. So I wasn't too concerned. The next appointment that I had, it looked fine. Nobody said anything. Everybody said that I was fine.
So you had one appointment and they said you're measuring small. And then the next appointment, they said, no, actually, you're fine.
And then the next appointment, they said, "Wow, you're measuring small. We're going to get a growth scan." Um, and so I said, "Okay." I wasn't very concerned, and I thought the growth scan would just kind of stop there, you know?
Yeah. Like confirm that
Um,
everything was fine.
mhm. So it was probably at 36 weeks pregnant. I got the growth scan, and it showed that he was in the ninth percentile. And so they immediately said that was growth restricted. And they started telling me that I needed to do an induction sooner rather than later.
Wait, because your baby's in the ninth percentile?
hmm
But like, this is just me talking. Um, somebody has to be in the ninth percentile in order for there to be a percentile chart. Like somebody's going to be in the 99th and somebody's going to be in the ninth and
hmm
somebody's going to be even like first percentile. Someone's going to be 75th. Like it spans. That's why there's like a whole chart because there's different different human beings are different sizes. You're just comparing them to the rest of the babies out there.
Yep.
So how is that like an automatic he's too small?
I don't know. And I kept asking, well, is his heart okay? Yeah, his heart's fine. The Dopplers came normal, and then we would check the placenta. The placenta was still working. He was still moving. He was taking his practice breaths. He was swallowing, and doing all the things that a little baby should be doing at that time. And so I said, no, I don't need an induction. He's doing fine in there. He's
Yeah.
just small.
Some babies are small and some babies are really big.
And so they said, well, if you're not going to get an induction, then you need to come twice a week. And I said, that's totally fine.
Twice a week for what?
For ultrasounds. That's what it was. They said non-stress test, but they just did ultrasounds every time I went.
Huh.
Um,
Okay.
and I wasn't excited about that, but at that point, I almost felt like I was going crazy. I needed to prove that my baby was fine
Yeah.
every time I had to go in there. So they were like, "You need to come in twice a week." I said, "That's fine. I'll show you twice a week that my baby's fine." So I started going, and I think the twice a week thing went for about 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
The first week was, I think, 38 weeks pregnant, was that first twice a week time. And the first ultrasound, one Doppler was mildly elevated. And so they said, "See, this is why you need to get an induction." And I said, "Well, if that continues for my next appointment," because this was Tuesday and I had another appointment on Thursday, I think. I was like, "Well, if they're still elevated on Thursday, then we'll talk about something different."
As in like his heart rate from the NST was mildly elevated?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're not even looking at the ultrasound, we're looking at an NST. So we're looking now. It sounds like
Mhm.
for a reason to induce you. Okay.
It drove me crazy, absolutely insane. I talked so much to my doula. My doula continually told me, "Don't have them push you in a certain way that you feel uncomfortable with." And she talked me off a ledge a couple of times,
Yeah.
just feeling crazy. I went in Thursday. I actually went to a different clinic of theirs because they didn't have enough room for me there. And that ultrasound tech looked at everything and she said, "Wow, that looks like a very healthy baby." And I said, "Thank you." And I left, and then I wasn't called to reschedule my appointments. So I wasn't going to call them to reschedule my appointments. I knew my baby was fine.
Yeah.
I had an appointment scheduled for that Friday.
The day after your root canal or 2 days after
Yeah.
your root canal? Okay.
But that was before I knew that I was going to have a root canal.
Okay.
But yeah.
So it's Friday at 39 weeks,
Yep.
and you go in for an appointment at your regular office. What happens?
So they called me on Tuesday after I had the whole root canal scheduled debacle. And I get a call Tuesday and they're like, "Hey, we need to see you today." And at that point I wasn't working and I said, "Great, when?" And they said basically I think it was like in 2 hours if possible. And so I went in and I had the next ultrasound and they looked at everything and they said, "Well, your fluids seem a little low." And I said, "That makes sense because I am in fact feverish and are having a hard time being able to drink as much liquids as I need to, because I have a tooth abscess."
Yeah.
And they said, "Well, your heart rate's higher." And I said, "Yep,
Yep,
I
that
do
makes
in
sense.
fact
I
have
have
a
a
fever
fever.
and I have a active infection in my head." Um, and they're like, "Well, you had elevated Dopplers, and because of all of this, that you're doing now, you probably need to be induced at least before your due date." And I said, "Did you see anything today that showed that he needed it other than the low amniotic fluid? Was his Dopplers okay?" And they said, "Yes."
Oh my gosh.
His Dopplers were fine.
And this is a midwifery group?
Yes.
Ugh. If this podcast has been with you through pregnancy, labor, or those quiet postpartum moments, and it's helped you feel more confident, grounded, or less alone, I want to share something new. You can now support the show with a small monthly donation or a one-time gift. Your support helps keep these conversations going and makes this resource available to parents who really need it. If this show has supported you in this season of life, I'd be so grateful if you'd consider supporting it back. Visit the show notes to find the link to donate. I truly thank you for being a part of the Surrendered Birth community.
So I said, "Then I don't need it." And every time I said I didn't need it, they brought up infant death. And there's only so many times I feel like you can hear as a pregnant lady infant death before. I think at that point was when I said, "Fine, schedule the induction." So they scheduled it for Friday and then pushed it back to Sunday. I always thought I could just get the call and just decide not to go, just so that I would get them off my back. So I was exhausted, tired on Tuesday. They'd finally broken me down. My husband was freaking out because, you know, he doesn't have the baby in him. So he just is listening to the professionals that are in front of him. And
Right, and
so,
taking every word that they say as truth, and
mhm.
yeah.
And so he was scared and pushed and tried to push for an induction as well. And so that was probably the main reason why I scheduled it for Friday expecting not to go in.
Yeah.
And I also had another non-stress test on Friday scheduled anyway. So I thought I would go in and everything would look fine.
So you
And
were going into your office for an appointment on Friday.
yes.
Okay.
So around this time, I started praying because I was so scared. I was praying a lot. And I thought, God, if there's a reason that I should go through this induction, then it shouldn't be scheduled. It would be something that they would have a room for me like right then and there. I know
Right.
that September is the craziest time that, a lot of people give birth at that time. So there are probably, a lot of people on that list that are waiting to be induced. If I was going to get induced, then it was going to be something that they said they have a room. I need to go now. That was the only way that I felt like I was going to be able to have that induction done. So Friday rolled around and I felt amazing. My fever had broken. I was still on antibiotics, but I was riding high with
Yeah.
the new tooth. Um, and I went in and they looked at everything and his fluid was still low and they then did the non-stress testing where they put the the things on your
The
belly.
monitor on your belly, and they give you a
Mhm.
button to press every time you feel him move.
Yes. So they wanted me to do that. So I laid down, they put the monitors on me and they left. They didn't tell me. I'm a first-time mom, first time being pregnant. I've never done this before.
They didn't
So
tell you press the button every time you feel
no,
him move?
they didn't give me a button.
Oh, so they were probably just trying to track contractions and his heart rate then.
Well, they came in well, we started hearing weird beeps, so my husband went out there and flagged somebody down, and they came in and they looked around and they said, "Oh, you don't have a button?" We're like, "No, we've been in here for about 6, 7 minutes." And they're like, "Oh." So she hands me the button and then leaves, and I don't know what I'm doing with this button. She
You're
didn't
like,
tell me
"What's
what to do with
this
the button.
for?" Oh, man.
So then we have another person come in around 10 minutes, and they're like, "So baby's not moving?" And I said, "Yeah, baby's moving fine." And they're like, "Why aren't you pushing the button?" Said, "You didn't tell me to push the button." So that was when I started pushing the button, and we finish up that test, and the midwife comes in, and it turned out the ultrasound that I did before I went in was actually a growth scan, which they didn't tell me about. That was just something that they decided to do. I did not have one scheduled, but they wanted to do one anyway. And he fell from the 7th percentile to the 5th percent or the ninth percentile to the 7th percentile. And because of that, and because of his low movement on the non-stress test, which
Which wasn't
again
accurate
wasn't
because you didn't
accurate,
have the button or the
they didn't
instructions.
tell me what to do. They implored me to go to get induced today, is what they said. And I said, "Fine, if there's a room available, if you feel like I absolutely have to do this, if there's a room available, I will go right now." The office that they had was right next to the hospital that I was supposed to give birth anyway. I was like, "We'll do that," thinking that that wasn't going to happen. They called, they made us wait in the room. They called and they came back and they said, "They have a room held for you. Go ahead and go." And I was shocked.
You're like, "Dang it, I was kinda hoping they were full."
I was shocked and so scared, and definitely started crying at that point because I didn't think that that was how that was gonna go at all. But at that point, I was so scared.
Well, yeah, when you have these providers saying infant death, week after week or multiple times a week, it sounds like, and telling you, you must go and do this right now and making it sound like this big emergency when it's not. And you're 39 weeks pregnant, super hormonal, super vulnerable, super like this is more of a provider bullying and pushing than it is an actual like legitimate concern.
Yep. So, we went and got Smoothie King, and we
Solid
sat
choice.
we sat in the hospital parking lot for a little bit, and I called my doula and kind of explained to her what was going on, and she asked me how I felt at that point. And at that point, I kinda came to peace with it and felt a lot better. I felt oddly comforted, and I think that was just God stilling my heart.
Yeah.
I felt a lot better, and I told her that, we were just we have a room available, we're just gonna go and see what happens,
Yeah.
and I'm okay with that. She said, "Okay," and to call her when, things started getting scary.
All right. When things pick up and you're actually in labor, give her a call.
Yeah, she didn't say scary. I I say scary. So we go in and we don't have any of our stuff. My husband is like, "Well, I'll get you situated here and I'll go and grab all of our hospital bags and stuff like that." By 6 p.m. that Friday, I got Cervidil put in place. We went in and sat down, and they first offered, because I got checked and I was like maybe a centimeter dilated. If I was allowed to go into labor by myself naturally, I felt like he probably wouldn't have come out September 1st. I didn't feel like
Right. Like he was not ready.
the only thing that I felt that he was really good at was being so low in my pelvis throughout my pregnancy. Whenever they looked for his heartbeat, anything like that, it was never like close to, it was always closer to like my pelvis was where he was.
Yeah.
He was always squished up there. They never got good pictures of him because he was always just so far in there. But other than that, I thought I was going to go over like a week, honestly, especially with, I was always pretty good at tracking my periods. So I had a pretty good idea of when I got pregnant initially. And when I looked at that, technically 40 weeks would have been like a week after the first.
Which could have contributed to them thinking he was smaller anyways.
Yep. So I wasn't expecting to be, any centimeter dilated
Yeah.
when I went in. But they were like, "You're 1 centimeter dilated." They wanted to start on Cytotec, but after reading the INMAs,
INMAs, you're like, no, thank you. Please give me the Cervidil.
I was so scared of the Cytotec and was like, absolutely not. Unless I absolutely have to, I'm not taking that. And so the midwife that was there, I guess on call is what they call it. And the nurses were like, okay, of course, we'll give you the Cervidil. We'll see how that goes. So that goes up next to my cervix, and I was a little uncomfortable, but so was life. And we hung out, and I had a very sleepless night in the hospital. The next morning at 6 a.m., because they, were going to check it in 12 hours. So at 6 a.m., they come in and they check it and they go, that did nothing.
Great.
Said, awesome. That's great to hear. I love that. So they gave me two options. They said either start the Cytotec or we could wait, and waiting probably leads to a C-section, is what they told me.
Oh,
So they
goodness.
basically gave me the option of get Cytotec or get a C-section in a little bit.
I have words I could say about that. But what were they going to give you the Cytotec orally or vaginally? Orally. Okay, good. Well, at least it was orally and not vaginally. I completely
The
disagree with vaginal Cytotec ever.
Yeah.
So,
So the midwife comes in and she is trying to talk me off the ledge about the Cytotec thing. And I was like, I don't trust that drug. She was like, well, why don't you trust this drug? And I was like, from, what I read, what I listened to, it could be dangerous.
yeah, it could lead to a C-section.
It wasn't initially designed for pregnancy or birth. It just
Right.
that's not what the drug
It
was
is not FDA
designed
approved
for.
for induction, by the way. It is not
Um,
approved for it. So they're using it off label.
awesome. So I was like, I heard that it could cause hemorrhaging. And she was like, well, I disagree with you.
Okay.
She was like, but if you do start to hemorrhage, then we have this and this put in place. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Guess I felt
You
like
felt
I
like
was
your hands
cornered.
were tied. Yeah.
I was like, okay, I guess give me the 50 micrograms of Cytotec to put in my cheek,
Cheek.
and we'll just, if you have to cut my baby out of me and I die, then I guess that's just how that is going to go.
Did they
Um,
ever suggest the Foley balloon at any point?
they they said that I needed to be dilated more before they were able to give me the Crookes catheter.
Cook's catheter, Foley balloon, same thing. Yeah. So, but usually if you're at least a centimeter, they can get it in there typically.
They told me I
Um,
needed to be a little bit more.
so maybe you weren't quite one. Okay.
I guess so. Again, I knew I wasn't ready to give birth, but
Right.
whatever. So at this point it's Saturday. I had taken, I think, 2 doses
Yeah.
of the Cytotec,
Mm-hmm.
and they checked me and they said, "Great, you are in the perfect range to get a Crookes catheter in." And I said, "That sounds great." They said we
So
could eat.
1 centimeter. Yeah.
So that's what happened. And they said this should help you dilate to 3 or 4 centimeters. So I got that put in probably in the afternoon. At that point, my family had come in. My mom was able to come in and see me. She braided my hair. She's always really good at that. So it was really nice to have her there to kind of keep my hair out of my face, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it started getting really uncomfortable, and I started getting a lot of a lot of contractions
Yeah.
all at once, and I felt like there was no break to them. Everything hurt, and I was
Yeah.
scared, and I didn't know what to do. So, at one point, they came and checked, and they were like, "It's right there. We just can't pull it out yet." And I looked at the lady and I said, "You have to get this thing out of me. I can't do this anymore." So they deflated it, and around that point was when, I mean, I was in so much pain. Everything, like, I didn't know, I didn't prepare for this, I think, was the main thing that I just kept thinking about. I was like, "This is so hard."
Yeah. Well, you're really irritating a cervix and a uterus that weren't ready for this yet. And so I doubt you're having those like beautiful, slow to start, like natural contractions that build very gradually. Like you were probably just
Yeah.
like constantly cramping and contracting with
Yes.
no breaks. Yeah.
So, because of that, they did give me the option of some painkillers, and I took that option because I needed some sleep at that point. It had been a sleepless night before. I didn't rest beautifully at all during the time that I was sitting there worrying about the side attack in my cheek, and definitely not when the Crooks catheter was in there. So I took some pain medication through the IV. Also, I didn't want an IV. That was something that I had in my birth plan. I'm not good with needles. Every time I
Mm.
had to get a needle done or blood work done during my pregnancy, I had to take it laying down because I would almost pass out every single time.
Oh, yeah.
They tried to put the thing that goes in your arm, but they couldn't get it deep enough, and I kept crying because it hurt so much. So they put an IV in my hand, and I hated
Yeah.
that thing. Every
Yeah.
time there was a moment of peace, I just sat there and stared at that stupid IV and got so mad.
Yeah. Induction sort of comes hand in hand with an IV usually because of
Yep.
everything else. So they took it out Saturday night. They took out the Cook's catheter Saturday
Mm.
night. Did it help you dilate at all? Were you like a 3 or a 4?
I was 3 centimeters then.
Okay.
So I fell asleep, woke up, and my amazing doula was there. And she immediately turned off the television and she turned on music. She asked me what kind of music I wanted. I told her that I wanted any soft acoustic that she could think of. She put on soft acoustic praise songs. She had electric candles, and she is in the process of getting, I think, certified for aromatherapy. So she asked before if I wanted any like aromatherapy stuff. And I said, if it helps, then I would love something other than peppermint because my husband is strangely allergic to peppermint oil.
Oh, we use peppermint a lot in birth. So,
I
huh.
I love peppermint. When we did use it, we used it just on a cloth and I just kind of held it here. It helped because every time my teeth chattered, my root canal really hurt.
Oh,
So I used a lot of I would have it looked so silly. I had a washcloth in my mouth and then some peppermint oil on the end so I could smell it. And I had the washcloth in my mouth so that my teeth wouldn't chatter, so that it wouldn't hurt my root canal.
did someone get a picture of this?
No. I
You're
I
like,
declined a
thank
lot of pictures.
goodness. So Saturday night continues.
Mhm.
Do you sleep anymore, or when did they start the Pitocin? Because my guess is that's what they came in to do next.
So when I woke up, it was later that night, and they started the Pitocin right before my doula Ashley got there. So once they started the Pitocin, I asked to start walking because I wasn't going to just sit there while that happened. I was going to try to do as much movement as I could, and that's also something that our doula had asked us to do to start doing before she got there. So I started taking laps with my night nurse because for some reason, also throughout the entire time that I was having this induction, none of the monitors were working right. At one point, our room lost power for 2 seconds,
Oh gosh.
and and then came up. You could tell it was, like, generator power because only one light worked.
Oh man.
They tried to give us the Bluetooth monitors, those never worked. I have very sensitive skin. They reattached those stupid Bluetooth monitors to my stomach probably about 5 times over the course of this entire birth, and my stomach, every place where they had to do the little sandpaper feeling scratchiness to get a good stick, was red, welted, looked awful.
Oh,
And the just even having in contact with the monitors, my stomach just hived up. It looked awful. And that was another thing that I had in my birth plan because I had written a birth plan.
of
They
course.
asked for the birth plan, which was so nice of them. I'm so glad that they asked for it. I don't know if they read it, but they asked if I had one, and I gave it to them.
It's pointless
Um,
now, but here you go. Yeah.
yeah, right? But they tried so hard to get the monitors to work. Monitors never worked. They kept asking me if, like, the baby was moving, and I said, "Yes." Like I've said the entire time that you've told me that my baby was unwell, my baby is well.
Yeah.
Um, so Pitocin started, and I think like 40 minutes go by, or closer to 30, and they asked if they could ramp it up, and I told them no. My contractions hadn't started being very regular yet, and I wanted to push it off as long as possible before they tried to move it up because I didn't want them to move it up too fast.
Yeah.
Um, I had felt continuous contractions when the Foley balloon was in there, the Crooks catheter was in there, and I didn't wanna feel that again, and I wanted to try to make labor progress slowly and
Yeah.
beautifully as it possibly could, as how I wanted it to. Um, and they respected that for, 20 more minutes.
I was like, for how long do they respect that?
And an hour hit, and they were like, "Okay, I think it's a really good time to move it up." And I said, "You can move it up 1." And they said, "Well, we don't move it up 1, we move it up 2
2.
because
Yeah.
we do it in, like, 2s." And I said, "Fine, but you're gonna move it up to the second lowest amount, and we're gonna see how that goes for an hour." And they said, "That's fine." So throughout that time, and it just kind of we kinda did that throughout the night. My contractions continued to get, more and more intense. But I was managing. I had taken a class of hypnotherapy. Again, I told you I pulled out all the stops as I possibly could. I
Yeah.
tried to be as prepared and in control of the situation as my flesh would possibly allow. So I knew how to breathe. I knew how to do all of these things, and they did come in handy for as much as I was allowed to control.
Right.
But I was breathing through them. My doula had me labor on the toilet, which was awesome. I felt great there
Good.
until probably around 2 or 3 in the morning. But I just kept doing everything I possibly could, no matter how I felt. If my doula said, "Drink this, move here, do this," I did it. I didn't care what was gonna happen. I
Nice.
didn't refuse anything my doula asked of me because I felt like she was going to get me through this, and she did.
Yeah.
She prayed with me when things got really hard, and my husband had no words around maybe 4 in the morning, because that's when they say that this happened, but I don't think they know. At some point, my water broke. I felt my water broke. I know my water broke. I tried to say, "I think my water broke." I don't know if that came out in the way that it was supposed to, because nobody checked me, and I don't think anybody believed me if they did hear me, because I'm assuming that how I said it, it just didn't come out and nobody understood me. 'Cause at that point,
You said it in your head, but maybe not as clearly out loud.
yeah, in in my mind, I probably said, "Guys, my water broke," but it probably came out as, "Ah!" my water broke and I started getting a ton of back labor. Everything was so much more intense. And throughout that time of intensity, they checked me and I think I was still at like 3 centimeters after all of that. And they were like, wow, he must be in an anterior position. So I thought he was coming up sunny side up.
Posterior, yeah.
Posterior, there we go. So they're like, "He must be in a posterior position. This is why you're feeling this way." Also, my contractions started coupling.
So you have like 2 back to back.
Yeah, they told
Yeah.
me that was because of the Pitocin, and they said that it would get better if they upped it, and I told them no.
What?
They said, "Usually if we give you more, it helps you regulate the contractions." And I said, "No."
That
That
sounds like
just
maybe we
didn't
should
sound
give
right
you
to me.
less.
That sounded insane to me. I think at one point I did let them up it for like an hour and then I immediately told them to put it back down and they pushed back on me, but I think they turned it down after an hour of I think I may have reached 10 on the Pitocin thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I spent most of my time at 8, whatever that means.
Yeah. Units. Yeah.
Yeah, I spent most of my time at 8 units. Also, because I was moving around, my night nurse was in there with me most of the time because my
Trying to track
monitors
your
wouldn't
baby's
work.
heart rate.
So
Yeah.
she's over there doing this, and my my doula is putting a TENS unit on my back. She's moving me around. She has me on a ball. She has me on the toilet. She has me on the bed. She has me walking around, swaying with my husband, just kind of whatever she could think of to kind of help me through a lot of this. There were some really sweet moments. There was one time that my husband was helping me and we were swaying together and she asked us to think about what a perfect date would look like. So, we got to talk through a very sweet moment of, what a good date would be. Like we've been together since we were 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
So we talked about, driving around one of the lakes that were near where we grew up. There's also a fun time. I couldn't tell you when this happened because time became weird when I think the Pitocin was at like a 6 when contractions started consistently coming. There was a point in time where she was my nurse was moving the monitor on my stomach and my baby kicked the ever loving crap out of it. It went boom, and it was late at night because it made everybody jump, and then we all laughed about it.
Yeah.
I was like, "He's telling you to back off."
Get away from me. Yeah.
So they say in my notes it says that at 4 in the morning my waters broke. But if you look at the notes, because I religiously looked at all of the notes because I wanted to see what they said how my
Right.
birth went. But they also said at the 6 o'clock in the morning check in that my waters were still intact. So that doesn't make any sense.
Huh.
They were definitely not intact at 6 in the morning.
I wonder if you had like a leak and not like a burst. You know what I mean?
That might have been it. I couldn't tell you. All I know is that I definitely felt fluid
Yeah.
and nobody else really. My doula said that she saw more during like one of the points of time that I was on laboring on the toilet, but around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, somewhere around there, things were getting really hard. Yeah, I was checked around that time. I was still 3 to 4 centimeters dilated, and I was really scared that this was going to continue. I was exhausted,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know what? I I broke down and I asked for the epidural because I was like, there's no end in sight. um, and obviously, if you ask for that, it's going to take an hour because they have to push however many units of fluid
Fluids.
through you
Yeah.
and call the anesthesiologist, and the anesthesiologist works on the other side of the hospital. So it takes them a while depending on if they're in surgery or whatever. So an hour goes by maybe, and the anesthesiologist walks into my room, and I can't remember who said somebody said something. I don't know if it was the midwife, the nurse, or somebody else, but somebody asked, "Wait, do you want us to check you before you get the epidural to see where you are? And if you're ready," because I was at that point, I was saying that I felt very pushy. And they told me not to push because I definitely wasn't ready, is what they kept telling me.
Yeah. Well, if they had
Um,
just checked you like an hour before and you were still 3 to 4 centimeters, I would probably agree with them in that moment.
so they checked me and I was 10 centimeters dilated, 100% effaced, but he
What?
was, yeah,
An hour after, like in the hour that you were waiting for your epidural, you went from a 3-4 to complete
to complete, other than him not being as far down into
down.
my pelvis as they
Yeah.
wanted him to be.
Whoa.
And so they
So what
told
did
me
you
that
do?
I I had no idea what to do. And so they kept asking, they were like, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" And during that time, I think I looked over, I was overwhelmed and I looked over at my doula and I screamed, "Ashley, what do I do?" Um, and she said, "Well, when you look at everything, you're still gonna have to labor down for a little bit to make sure that he's in
Down.
the down so that you're able to push him out." And I said, "What does that mean? What do I do?" I feel really bad. I told her later that I'm sorry for pushing you to make a decision for me because that's not your job. And she was like, "No, no, no, you made the decisions." So she restated that, it could take a little bit longer. And if I really needed time to rest, then to go ahead and get the epidural. And I said, "Okay." And we turned around and looked, and the anesthesiologist left the
Was
room.
gone.
So my nurse sprinted down the hallway trying to get her and caught up to her, and the anesthesiologist said, "She's gonna have to wait. I have other patients to see." So I waited for maybe another, I think it was another hour, because at that point, I think it was 8 before I actually got the epidural. I don't know why I got the epidural at that point, but I did. She came back, and at that point, I couldn't sit. There was absolutely no way in in the world that I was going to sit, but they made me sit. I don't know. And I got the epidural, and they were like, "Try to sleep." I did not sleep. I sat there and I cried, and I was so happy that everything was almost over because I knew that I was 10 centimeters dilated and that I just needed to wait a little bit longer for him to move down and I would be done. At this point, it's Sunday, and I've been at this stupid hospital
It's
since
Friday.
Friday.
Yeah.
So I think 9 o'clock, somewhere around that, because I only had the epidural in on for about 45 minutes. Didn't have it for very long. I had it until my day nurse came in and I was like, "Ha ha, I don't feel anything when I do this." And I was tapping my chest. She was like, "Oh."
That's not good.
So she turned off everything.
Yeah.
um and then a little bit of time goes by, and I think my husband said I only pushed for about maybe 15, 20 minutes. So, like, he was born at 9:47. So a little bit goes by and my midwife comes in and she goes, you're going to push." And I said, "That sounds great." So, they tried 2 different positions, but I ended up, um, on my back pushing, and they told me to hold my breath. And I was like, "I don't know if I can hold my breath and push at the same time." They were like, "No, you have to do that." I said, "I'll try." And I ended up passing out
Oh, boy.
while I was
Like,
pushing.
Did they get, like, the smell salts and bring you back?
They didn't actually. It was really quick. My husband said that I it was a quick in and out. It felt like forever. It felt like my mind drifted off and then I came back. At one point I looked around after I had passed out. I looked around at everybody and I didn't recognize what was going on. And so I looked and I said, "What am I doing?" And somebody said, "You're pushing your baby out."
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Like, "Oh, right." And I pushed him out, and he was 5 pounds, 15 ounces in the 5th percentile and 19 and a quarter inches long,
Well, he was
and
long.
he
I mean,
was
for
yeah.
being 6 pounds, like,
Mhm.
yeah.
And they put him on my chest, and it was the best moment of my life, if, you know, if I wasn't so out of it.
You weren't so disoriented from the last few days. So, okay. Well, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
That's quite an accomplishment. So, here's my theory. If he waited, a couple more weeks, he probably would have been, 7, or even he could have even gotten up to 8 pounds, depending on how long he waited.
Mhm.
So to me, like at 39 weeks, he's basically 6 pounds. A 6-pound baby
Mhm.
is
That's
not,
not bad.
no, not unheard of. My friend had a baby at 42 weeks who was 5.5 pounds at 42 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Um, and again, not IUGR, just a small baby. Her and her husband are smaller people.
Mm.
Um, okay. So question, did they look at your placenta and did they tell you anything about your placenta?
They told me my placenta was smaller than they thought it was going to be.
Okay.
That was all I had. I didn't tear, I had minimal bleeding, and that was it. That was all I got out of
But
that.
your
I still have my
placenta,
placenta in my freezer.
me too.
I
Solid.
just realized that.
So it wasn't like calcified. It wasn't like
No,
deteriorating. It wasn't.
no, it
Okay.
was working. It was smaller, but I don't know. And
Okay.
when he came out and my midwife came later and was like, "Wow, he was a little guy. I'm glad that we were able to get him out when we could because obviously he needed to come out because he was small," is what I was told.
I, to me, that doesn't like connect. It's like they're trying to make it connect, but had he stayed in there, he could have continued
I
to
know.
grow and get bigger
That's what I didn't understand. I kept saying, "If he's fine, then he's just small." And they
yeah.
kept saying, "Well, we want him out before he can't tolerate labor because small babies can't tolerate labor well." And I said, "Then leave him in so that he's not a small baby
Yeah, so
because
that he
he's
gets
still
bigger.
growing." And then
Oh my
they kept
goodness.
doing the growth scans, and obviously he was gonna go down in percentages because each week is going to be he's gonna be in a different whatever.
Well, and they
So
were inconsistent. When you got it at the other place, they said, "Yeah, it looks great." Like,
he looks
so,
fine. And
all right, the place that's not in charge of your induction said he looked fine.
yep.
Okay, so in reflection of the last couple of months of processing all of this and thinking about all of this, like what are your thoughts about what happened? Like in terms of, you getting induced and stuff, do you think that that was the right call of the midwives, not of you, but
Mhm.
like if you could go back, would you do it again? Or like, just what are your thoughts now that it's been a couple months?
Hmm. It's hard for me to know if they had been more lenient, then I 100% would have continued. Sorry.
Continued to stay pregnant?
Yeah. I would have continued the pregnancy if they had just if they hadn't sat there and said fetal death so many times.
Right. Well, he doesn't look like a small baby to me now.
No, he's 11 pounds, 11 and a half pounds. He
Way to
went from the
go.
5th percentile to the 23rd. He's okay, and that's the main thing that I'm happy about, especially with after after we got settled in the mother baby part of the hospital, they were like, we need to keep you at least an extra day. I passed out, and they kept the stupid,
IV,
not they did
blood,
keep the IV in, but
blood
the
pressure
blood
cuff.
pressure cuff
Yeah.
on me throughout the time that I was pushing. So they labeled me hypertension. I was like, no, my blood pressure has been beautiful this entire time.
Yeah.
I was pushing out a baby. That's why my blood pressure went crazy. They're like, well, we need you to stay an extra day because of it. The day, so I gave birth on the 31st. And I thought I'd go home like sometime the next day, but they told me that I wouldn't go home until the 2nd. So the first rolls around, and I told them to take the IV out of my hand. And the nurse said, we can't in case you need something because you're hypertension. And I said, if I need something, then you can put the IV back in my hand. And she said, well, I'll take it out if you insist. And I said, I insist.
I insist. Thank you.
You take this stupid thing out of my hand. Oh, I hated it so much, but it was good. It was out. But he started having issues with his blood sugar.
Well, they
Pretty
assume that all
quickly
babies
after that.
do who are smaller. Yeah.
On the morning of the 2nd, his blood sugar went down to like 17, when they wanted it to be at least, I think, 45. And he was struggling to eat. We were not having a good time trying to breastfeed. His mouth was just, they kept saying his mouth was small, and that's why. But like, babies are born to breastfeed, or at least, that's what that's what I kept thinking. I was like, there's got to be. I'm also a lactation consultant, so I do, speech therapy with babies. I do feeding therapy with babies, and I've helped people breastfeed their children. And so I have people coming in telling me things that
You're like, I already know all of this.
I was like, yes, like, tell me something different so that I can get my baby latched. And so finally a nurse came in at one point and was like, oh, did nobody give you a nipple shield? I was like, no. They gave me a nipple shield, and he latched beautifully. I still have to use a nipple shield every once in a while. I think it's just because it's easier for him to latch with a nipple shield now, and
Yeah.
babies are just going to do what's easiest,
Yeah.
when it comes to feeding. So we're working on decreasing the need for that even now.
Yeah.
But after that, and just as much pumping as I possibly could in the hospital, we were able to leave on that Wednesday, whatever that Wednesday was.
The 3rd.
The 3rd. Thank you.
I only remember because I remember that Monday was the 1st. So
That's right.
going in order. Labor Day. So did they try to push formula or anything, or were you able to just do colostrum?
They pushed. He got, I think, maybe 3 bottles of formula. Right at when his sugars were 17 and my milk hadn't come in yet, and I was only getting like this, maybe 5 mLs of colostrum.
Yeah. Which is normal.
They were like, he needs way more than that. And I was scared, because at that point he was pretty lethargic. So I just said, go ahead and feed him the formula. But we didn't need it after we left the hospital. We didn't need it on the September 3rd. At that point, I was consistently pumping closer to like 20 milliliters, and
Nice.
having a great time. So, but yeah.
So, but once you were home, everything worked out, was squared away.
Yep. I came home. I had a mini mental freak out probably that first day. Going from the hospital, where I had people checking on me and my baby, like, I felt like every hour on the hour, to me just being alone with this baby, was really scary. So it took me about a full day, and my husband cleaning everything that we didn't have time to clean because we didn't know that we were going to be induced and
Right.
had everything. But once we got everything set up, everything was much better. And he's just been growing ever since.
Good for him. What's his name?
His name is Caius.
Caius. I've never heard that.
Yep. It was one of the only ones that we could agree on that both me and my husband liked. And it means Latin for rejoice. And we thought that would be perfect for our first son.
Aw. So through that entire experience, your pregnancy, your root canal, your induction, labor, birth, everything into postpartum, what do you feel like the Lord really taught you or spoke to you or revealed to you?
The Lord, throughout this entire journey, I guess, I don't think I'd ever felt so close to God. I did so much more praying and fell into more of a routine with that than that I, hadn't been able that I had fallen out of routine. I did that so much throughout my life until a certain point where I got out of routine of talking with God consistently. And so having this baby and going through this, I've been able to spend more time in the word and be more diligent with setting aside time to talk with him, and definitely learn that there's only so much that you can do. The rest is going to be up to him, and to trust that his will is perfect and that you'll make it out of it, you know?
Yeah. Well, before we finally end here, do you have any other advice or anything you would want to say to other, first time parents out there?
Um, I would say to try to advocate, especially going through the hospital system. Some people that's their main kind of way that they're going to give birth because, their insurance covers it. So going through the hospital can be hard. Just try to advocate for yourself as much as possible and for the birth that you want, because you can have that birth. It's just a little harder sometimes.
Definitely. Well, Amelia, thank you so much for coming on here. Thank you for taking the time to share your story and to just spend this time with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. You can reach me at Surrendered Birth Services on Instagram or email me at contact@surrenderedbirthservices.com. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting the follow button. Also, we'd love for you to leave a written review of the show so that more people's births and lives can be changed by the love of Jesus and the empowerment of accurate birth education. If you really enjoyed this episode in particular, please take a screenshot of it and post it to your Instagram story, tagging Surrendered Birth Services. If you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to fill out your interest form. Also, if you're interested in taking my childbirth classes, birth consultations, or having me as your birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to my website for online and in-person options. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.
At 6 a.m, I go and wake up my husband on Sunday and say, "You have to drive me to the emergency vet." I found one at 4 a.m. While I was in so much pain. And they open in, I think an hour. I
Wait,
think they're
like
about,
the ER, like the hospital, or like the ER, like dentist?
it was an emergency dentist.
Okay. You accidentally said emergency vet.
Oh, I
And
did?
don't worry, you're 2 months postpartum in the fog. Don't worry. But I was just like, wait a second, I missed something. Why are we going to the vet all of a
I
sudden?
don't know.
And then your cat walked across the screen at the same time.
Yes.
She's
It's
like, "Are
a
you talking
party
about
at my
me?"
house.